The massive doors of the Grand Assembly Hall slid open with a sound like thunder. Captain Hyundai stepped inside and stopped for a moment, looking at the enormous circular room. The ceiling stretched high above, covered in lights that looked like stars. Rows of seats formed a giant circle, going down like stairs toward the center stage. Alien delegates were already arriving. The Cravasians came first, their huge insect-like bodies clicking and chittering as they moved. Each one stood at least 3 meters tall, with armor that looked like black metal growing from their skin. They walked to the front row seats without asking anyone. They knew they belonged there. The Thelvar floated in next, their bodies glowing with soft blue light. They did not have solid forms like other species. Instead, they looked like living energy shaped into bodies. Their thoughts touched the minds of everyone nearby, feeling cold and distant. They took seats in the front row across from the Cravasians. The Mektor collective marched in with perfect timing. Their bodies were half machine, half flesh. Red lights glowed where their eyes should be. Weapons grew from their arms like extra limbs. They calculated everything, measured everything, and feared nothing. They sat in the remaining front row seats. "Here we go again," said Yongkang quietly. He was young for a diplomat, barely 25 years old. He carried a datapad and tried not to look nervous. "Where do you want to sit, Captain?" asked Commander Tae Sung. He was a military man with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. He watched every door, every shadow, every alien face. "Back row," Hyundai said simply. "Same as always." Dr. Rinhai smiled a little. She was a scientist who studied alien life, and she had learned to read the patterns in how species behaved. "They still think we sit in the back because we are ashamed." "Let them think that," Hyundai said. He led his small team up the stairs, past the mid-level seats where dozens of other species were settling in. Some were tall, some were short, some had fur, some had scales. All of them were stronger than humans in some way. Faster, better weapons. Harder skin, sharper teeth. The humans climbed to the very top row and sat down. From here they could see everything. Every entrance. Every exit. Every face in the crowd below. No one could come up behind them. No one could trap them in the middle. "The Cravasians are staring at us again," Yongkang whispered. Hyundai did not turn to look. He did not need to. He had already seen the large warrior in the front row looking up at them with what might have been confusion, or might have been pity. The humans had been part of the galactic community for 40 years now. In all that time, no one understood why they always refused the good seats. The other species thought humans were polite, or shy, or maybe they knew their place as a weaker species. None of them understood the truth. The opening ceremony began. Lights dimmed. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing the 3 great powers shaking hands or claws or energy fields. "Peace between the strong," the hologram seemed to say, "working together to lead the galaxy forward." Hyundai watched carefully, but not the hologram. He watched the doors. He watched the other delegates. Old habit. Dangerous habit. Useful habit. Humans had spent millions of years being hunted by stronger things. They learned to watch. They learned to wait. They learned to sit where they could see the threat coming. The speech was boring. Admiral Threkfer of the Cravasians spoke about honor and strength. High Mind Selvara of the Thelvar spoke about wisdom and unity. Prime Unit 7 of the Mektor spoke about efficiency and progress. Every species in the room had heard these speeches before. Then the alarm started. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through the speeches like a knife. Red lights flashed. The hologram disappeared. Every delegate jumped to their feet, looking around in confusion. "What is happening?" Someone shouted. "Sensor alert," Tae Sung said quietly, checking his datapad. His face went very still. Something big just appeared outside the station. "How big?" Hyundai asked. "World ship size." That got everyone's attention. A world ship was a vessel the size of a small moon. Only the most advanced species could build them, and even then only a few existed in the entire galaxy. The main screen flickered to life, showing the space outside the station. A massive shape blocked out the stars. It was dark and angular, covered in weapons and armor. Strange symbols glowed on its hull, symbols that made the translation computers scream with error messages. "Identify yourself," came the station commander's voice over the speakers. "You have entered restricted space during a peace summit." The response came in a language that had not been spoken for 10,000 years. The computers finally translated it, and the words appeared on every screen. "We are the Zathran. We have returned. You have 30 minutes to prepare. Then we will begin harvesting." The room exploded into noise. Delegates shouted questions. The Crovasians roared challenges. The Thelvar sent psychic waves of alarm. The Mektor Collective ran calculations at high speed. Hyundai was already moving. "Exit routes," he said quietly to his team. Tae-sung mapped the fastest way to the emergency pods. "Rin-hei, pull up everything we know about the Zathran from the archives. Yongkang, grab the emergency supplies from locker 14. "Should we warn the others?" Yongkang asked. "They will figure it out soon enough," Hyundai said. "We need to be ready first." They moved quickly and quietly while everyone else was still trying to understand what was happening. Humans had learned long ago that the first few seconds of danger were the most important. React fast. Think fast. Survive first, ask questions later. Down below, Admiral Threkvar was organizing the Crovasian warriors into battle formation. High Mind Selvara was trying to make psychic contact with the Zathran ship. Prime Unit 7 was calculating weapon ranges and defensive positions. All three were thinking about how to fight. None of them were thinking about how to escape. "Archives are up," Rin-hei said, reading fast. "The Zathran were the most feared species in ancient times. They hunted other species for sport and resources. They disappeared 10,000 years ago. No one knows why." "Now we know," Tae-sung said darkly. "They were waiting." "Waiting for what?" Yongkang asked. Hyundai looked down at all the powerful species gathering in their strong formations, preparing for a fair fight against an enemy that did not believe in fairness. "Waiting for the prey to forget how to run," he said. The first explosions shook the station. The Zathran were not waiting 30 minutes. They were already attacking, and the humans, sitting in the back row with clear sight of every exit, were the only ones ready to move. The station shook again, harder this time. Metal screamed as something tore through the outer hull. Emergency lights painted everything red. The pleasant meeting hall had become a trap. Admiral Threkvar did what Crovasians always did. He roared and charged toward the main entrance with his warriors behind him. Their battle cry was loud enough to hurt human ears. They were going to meet the enemy head-on, the way their species had always fought. "Foolish," Tae-sung muttered. He was watching the tactical display on his pad. "The Zathran are breaching in 12 different locations. The main entrance is a distraction." "Tell them," Yongkang said. They would not listen, Hyundai replied. He was already moving toward a side door that most delegates probably did not even notice. They think charging forward is brave. They forgot that living is braver. The Thelvar were attempting something different. They gathered in a circle, their energy bodies glowing brighter. They were trying to create a psychic shield around the room. It was impressive to watch, like a dome of blue light spreading over everything. Then the Zathran broke through. The creatures that poured into the assembly hall were nightmares made real. They stood 3.5 meters tall, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces had too many eyes and too many teeth. They moved fast, faster than anything that big should move. The Crovasian warriors met them with honor and courage. It was not enough. The Zathran had studied Crovasian fighting styles for thousands of years. They knew every move before it happened. For every Crovasian that landed a blow, 3 more fell. The psychic shield shattered. The Thelvar cried out in pain as their mental defenses were torn apart. The Zathran had psychic dampeners built into their armor. They had prepared for everything. The Mektor Collective opened fire with precision and calculation. Their weapons were powerful and their aim was perfect. It did not matter. The Zathran armor was designed to withstand exactly those weapons. The Mektor started falling back, their tactical programs unable to find a solution. "Move now," Hyundai said to his team. They slipped through the side door while everyone else was focused on the fight. The corridor outside was empty and quiet, which made it more dangerous, not less. Empty meant the Zathran had been through already or were coming soon. "Service tunnel 50 meters ahead," Tae-sung said, reading the station map. "Goes down 3 levels and connects to the emergency pod bays." They ran, but not in a straight line. Tae-sung led them in a pattern, using doorways for cover, checking each corner before crossing. This was not glorious. This was not brave by Crovasian standards. This was smart. Behind them, they could hear screaming and weapons fire. Other delegates were trying to flee now, but they were using the main corridors. The Zathran were waiting there. "In here," Rin-hei said, pointing to a ventilation shaft. The grate was small, maybe a meter wide. "That is too small for most species," Yongkang said. "Exactly," Hyundai replied. He pulled the grate open, which means it is perfect for us. They crawled inside one by one. The shaft was tight and uncomfortable. It smelled like oil and recycled air. Behind them, they heard heavy footsteps in the corridor. Zathran soldiers searching for prey. The footsteps paused at their hiding spot. Through the grate, Hyundai could see dark armor and glowing eyes. The Zathran was huge, taking up the entire corridor. It looked around slowly, scanning for threats. Hyundai held perfectly still. The others did the same. They did not even breathe loudly. This was another old skill. Humans had once hidden from lions and tigers. They knew how to be invisible. The Zathran moved on. It was looking for armed resistance, for warriors and weapons. It did not think to look for small humans hiding in the walls like mice. They crawled through the ventilation system for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The shaft branched and turned, going places that were not on any map. Maintenance paths, too small for the station's larger species. "I can hear something ahead," Rinhai whispered. They moved carefully and found another grate. Below them was a storage room, and in that room were survivors. Hyundai counted quickly. 20, maybe 30 aliens from different species. They were huddled together, scared and confused. Among them was a Crovasian warrior. He was injured, bleeding from wounds in his armor. He looked ashamed, sitting on the floor while others of his kind were fighting and dying. "We need to get down there," Yongkang said. "No," Taesung replied. "It is too open. If the Zathran find them, we cannot help." "We can lead them somewhere safer," Hyundai said. He was thinking, planning. "But we need to move them in small groups, quietly." He kicked the grate open and dropped down. The aliens jumped in fear, ready to fight or run. Then they saw he was human, small and unarmed, and they relaxed a little. They did not see him as a threat. "I am Captain Hyundai," he said simply. "I know a way out. But you must follow exactly as I say. No questions. No arguments." A Mektor unit stepped forward. Its red eyes studied Hyundai carefully. "Our tactical analysis shows all main escape routes are compromised. Your claim is statistically improbable." "I am not using the main routes," Hyundai replied. The injured Crovasian warrior, his name was Krev, spoke up. "You want us to hide and crawl like prey animals?" "I want you to live," Hyundai said. "You can die with honor if you prefer, but you cannot help your people if you are dead." Krev's mandibles clicked together in what might have been anger or shame, but he nodded. "I will follow your lead, human." "Good, everyone move in groups of 5. Stay low, stay quiet. Follow Commander Taesung." They moved through the station like ghosts. Taesung led the first group through maintenance corridors and cargo passages. Paths that were too small or too inconvenient for most species to bother with. Paths that the Zathran were not watching. Hyundai brought up the rear with Krev and Rinhai. The Crovasian was big and slow in the tight spaces, but he tried his best. He was learning what humans already knew. Sometimes being small was an advantage. They heard fighting in the distance. The sounds of weapons and screams echoed through the station walls. But in their small hidden paths, they were safe. "Why do you know these routes?" Krev asked. "You are guests on this station like us." "I studied the maps before we arrived," Hyundai said. "I always study the maps. Why?" "Because I always want to know how to escape." Krev made a sound like laughter, but bitter. "Your people think about running before you even arrive." "My people think about surviving," Hyundai corrected. "There is a difference." They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Taesung held up his hand for everyone to stop. He pointed at the floor. There were claw marks there, deep gouges in the metal. Fresh ones. "They came through here recently," he whispered. "Can we go around?" Yongkang asked. Rinhai checked her datapad. "Not without adding an hour to our route. The emergency pods will be gone by then." Hyundai looked at the claw marks. He looked at the survivors they had gathered. 32 aliens who would die if they stayed here. 32 lives depending on him making the right choice. "We go through," he decided. "But we go smart. Taesung, you take half the group the quiet way around the left corridor. I will take the rest through here. If there is an ambush, they will focus on my group. You get everyone to the pods." "That is suicide," Krev said. Hyundai smiled, and it was not a happy smile. "No, that is being bait. Humans are very good at being bait. We have had lots of practice." They split up. Hyundai's group moved forward slowly, making just enough noise to be noticed. In the darkness ahead, something moved. Eyes glowed. The Zathran had indeed left guards. "Run," Hyundai said quietly. Not straight ahead, scatter, left, right, anywhere. Meet at emergency pod bay 7. The aliens scattered like startled birds. The Zathran guards roared and gave chase. But hunting many targets moving in different directions was hard. Some would escape. That was the point. Handai ran with Krev and Rinhai. They dove through a doorway just as claws scraped the wall behind them. They sealed the door and kept running. Behind them, they could hear the Zathran hitting the door. But the door held. Just long enough. Your species is insane, Krev panted as they ran. Maybe, Handai replied, but we are still alive. They reached the emergency pod bay to find Tae-sung already there with most of the survivors. Others trickled in from different directions following the plan even in chaos. 32 had started. 29 arrived. It was not perfect, but it was better than 0. As they loaded into the escape pods, Krev looked at Handai with new eyes. I understand now, he said. Why you sit in the back row? You are not hiding from threats. You are watching them. Now you are learning, Handai replied. The pods launched, shooting away from the station into the darkness of space. Behind them, the station burned. The strongest species in the galaxy were losing, but the humans were still alive, and they were already planning what to do next. The emergency bunker was 3 levels below the assembly hall, built into the station's core. It was designed to survive almost anything. Handai hoped that almost would be enough. More survivors kept arriving over the next few hours. They came in small groups, scared and injured. Most had followed human teams through hidden passages. Some had learned and found their own way. All of them were grateful to be alive. Admiral Threkvar arrived with 12 Kravasian warriors, all that remained of his 100-strong force. His armor was cracked and burned. One of his arms hung useless. But he was alive. High Mind Selvara came next, her energy form flickering weakly. The psychic attacks had hurt her badly. 2 other Thelvar floated behind her, barely conscious. Prime Unit 7 of the Mektor Collective walked in last, half of its body destroyed and rebuilt with emergency repairs. Its red eyes still glowed, still calculated, but now with new data to process. They gathered in the bunker's central room. The most powerful species in the galaxy, beaten and bloody. They looked at Handai, waiting. We need to counterattack, Threkvar said immediately. His voice was hoarse but determined. Gather our forces. Strike back with honor. Our psychic abilities are useless against them, Selvara said, her thoughts feeling cold and tired in everyone's minds. We must negotiate. Find peaceful solution. Probability of successful frontal assault is 0.3%, Prime Unit 7 stated. Probability of successful negotiation is 0.01%. We require new tactical paradigm. Everyone turned to look at Handai. He was just a captain, a security officer, but he had kept more people alive than any admiral or commander. They are right, Handai said. You cannot beat them by being strong. They are stronger. You cannot beat them by being smart. They are smarter. You cannot beat them the way you have always beaten enemies. Then how? Threkvar demanded. What can we do? You can learn to be weak. The silence that followed was heavy. Offensive. The idea of choosing weakness went against everything these species believed in. Explain, Prime Unit 7 said. At least the machine was willing to listen to logic. Rinhei stepped forward. She projected images on the wall screen. The Zathran are apex predators. They evolved to hunt other apex predators. They target strength because strength is what they understand. They prepare for power because power is what they expect. She changed the image to show Earth's history. Pictures of early humans running from lions, hiding from bears, being hunted by wolves. Humans were never apex predators, she continued. We were prey. We were weak, slow, and soft. Everything could kill us, so we learned different rules. We learned to hide, Yongkang added. We learned to run. We learned to wait and watch and plan. We learned that survival was more important than pride. Tae-sung pulled up tactical maps. The Zathran control all major corridors. They hold all strategic positions. They have superior numbers and technology. If we fight them on their terms, we lose. So we change the terms, Handai said. We do not fight where they expect. We do not use the tactics they studied. We make them hunt us in ways they are not prepared for. You want us to hide like cowards, Threkvar said. But there was less anger in his voice now. More thought. I want you to hide like humans, Handai replied. and humans survived for millions of years by being very, very good at hiding. He laid out his plan. No large battles, no honorable challenges, no predictable patterns. Instead, they would use small teams, hit and run attacks, traps, and ambushes. They would attack supply lines instead of soldiers. They would make the Zathran waste resources searching for them. They would be everywhere and nowhere. This is not how Crevasians fight, Threkvar said. Do you want to fight like a Crevasian or do you want to win? Hyundai asked. That got through. Threkvar looked at his surviving warriors. Looked at the empty spaces where hundreds more should be standing. He made a decision. Teach us, he said. Over the next hours, humans taught aliens how to be prey. Taesung worked with the Crevasian warriors. He taught them patience, something they had never valued. Your strength is useful, he explained, but only if you live long enough to use it. Wait for the right moment. Let the enemy come to you, then strike once hard and disappear. Krev, the injured warrior who had been rescued earlier, learned quickly. This is harder than fighting, he admitted. Waiting takes more discipline than charging. That is why humans practice it, Taesung said. Easy things do not keep you alive. Rinhai worked with the Thelvar. She taught them to be quiet, something completely foreign to their nature. The Thelvar broadcast their thoughts constantly, like a star broadcasting light. It was how they communicated, how they existed. You must learn to whisper, Rinhai explained. Send out false signals. Make them think you are somewhere you are not. Be the shadow, not the light. Selvara struggled with this concept. We are beings of light. Hiding our nature feels wrong. Feeling wrong is better than being dead, Rinhai said gently. And you can shine again once you have won. Yongkang worked with the Mektor units. This was perhaps the hardest task because machines thought in patterns and efficiency. Teaching them to be random went against their programming. Your calculations are perfect, Yongkang said to Prime Unit 7. That is your weakness. The Zathran can predict perfect calculations. Can you be imperfect? Inefficiency is error, Prime Unit 7 replied. No, inefficiency is unpredictable. And unpredictable means alive. They practiced in the bunker. Crevasians learned to move silently despite their size. Thelvar learned to create psychic decoys. Mektor learned to make random choices. All of them learned the most important lesson. Pride was not worth dying for. While training continued, Hyundai planned the first operation. He studied the station maps with Taesung. The Zathran had established a command post in the main cargo bay. It was well defended, heavily armed, seemingly untouchable. We cannot attack it directly, Taesung said. No, Hyundai agreed, but we do not need to. What does a command post need? Power, communication, supplies. Then we cut those instead. The plan was simple. 3 teams. One would sabotage the power relays 3 levels down. One would jam the communication arrays on the outer hull. One would contaminate the food synthesizers with harmless bacteria that would make the Zathran sick but not dead. Why not kill them? Threkvar asked. Dead enemies can be replaced, Hyundai explained. Sick enemies need care and resources. They slow down the healthy ones. They spread doubt and fear. Fear is a better weapon than death. It was a very human way of thinking. The aliens were starting to understand that this was both disturbing and effective. They launched the operation at shift change, when the Zathran guards were tired and distracted. The teams moved through maintenance tunnels and air ducts, paths too small for the Zathran to guard. Krev led the Crevasian team to the power relays. They did not charge in roaring. They crept in silence, placed explosive charges, and left without being seen. The explosion came later, long after they were gone. Selvara led the Thelvar to the communication arrays. They did not try to fight the guards with psychic attacks. They created illusions, made the guards see threats that were not there, and slipped past while the guards fought shadows. Prime Unit 7 led the Mektor to the food synthesizers. They did not calculate the most efficient sabotage. They introduced random errors, small changes that would take days to track down. Inefficiency used as a weapon. All 3 teams returned. 0 casualties. Mission complete. In the command post, the lights went out. Communications failed. And over the next day, Zathran soldiers started getting sick. The Zathran commander, a massive creature named War Leader Thex, roared in frustration. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had crushed armies. He had never dealt with an enemy that refused to fight. Find them, he ordered. They must be somewhere. But the resistance was not somewhere. They were everywhere. And nowhere. Small attacks came from unexpected places. Patrols disappeared. Equipment stopped working. It was like fighting ghosts. In the bunker, Threkvar looked at his warriors with new eyes. They were learning to be invisible, silent, patient. They were learning to be like humans. And they were still alive. I understand now, he said to Hyundai. Your people have always fought from the back row. Not because you are weak, but because you are smart. Hyundai nodded. The front row is where heroes die. The back row is where survivors plan. Teach us more, Threkvar said, and so they did. The galaxy's strongest species learned from the galaxy's weakest how to hide, how to wait, and how to win. The Zathran had prepared for a war. Instead, they got a hunt, and they were finally the ones being hunted. 3 days had passed since the Zathran invasion began. In that time, everything had changed. War leader Thex stood in his command center and tried to understand how he was losing. His forces controlled every major position on the station. His soldiers outnumbered the enemy 5-1. His technology was superior. By every measure, he had already won, yet his warriors were exhausted. Patrols went missing. Equipment broke down. Food supplies were contaminated. Power failed at random times, and the enemy never showed themselves for a proper fight. Report, he growled at his intelligence officer. We have captured 0 enemy combatants, the officer said nervously. We have confirmed kills of 3, maybe 4. We have lost 87 soldiers. How? Thex roared. How do we lose 87 warriors to an enemy we cannot find? The officer had no answer. The Zathran were the ultimate hunters. They had studied every species in the galaxy. They knew Kravasian battle tactics, Thelvar psychic patterns, and Mektor strategic calculations. They had prepared for everything. Everything except prey that refused to be prey. In the bunker, Hyundai was coordinating the resistance. He had divided the survivors into small cells, each operating independently. This way, if one cell was captured, the others would survive. Team 7, report, he said into his communicator. Krev's voice came back, quiet and controlled. The Kravasian warrior had learned to whisper. Target reached. Preparing sabotage. Team 4, report. In position, replied a Thelvar named Jinhara. She had learned to suppress her psychic glow. The guards cannot sense us. Team 11, report. Accessing the ventilation system now, said a Mektor unit designated Model Kyung. It had learned to make random choices. We'll introduce Nerve Agent in 5 minutes. All teams, proceed. Remember, survive first. Mission second, this was the human way. Every other species put the mission first and accepted casualties. Humans knew that live soldiers were more valuable than completed missions. A live soldier could try again tomorrow. Team 7, led by Krev, placed explosives on a Zathran ammunition depot. But they did not set them to explode immediately. They set timers for different days, random hours. This meant the Zathran could never feel safe. Any moment something might explode, psychological warfare. Humans had invented it, perfected it, and now they were teaching it. Team 4, the Thelvar group, moved through the station's upper levels. They did not attack soldiers. Instead, they created psychic echoes, false images that made the Zathran see threats everywhere. Enemy soldiers started shooting at shadows, wasting ammunition and energy. Paranoia warfare. Make the enemy fight themselves. Team 11 released a gas into the Zathran barracks. It was not poison. It was a mild irritant that made sleep difficult. Not enough to kill, just enough to prevent rest. The Zathran warriors became tired, made mistakes, grew angry at each other. Exhaustion warfare. Humans had learned long ago that a tired enemy was easier to beat. Tae Sung was teaching a mixed group of warriors how to set up ambushes. Think like a hunter, he said. Where would your prey go? What path looks safe? Make that path into a trap. A young Kravasian warrior named Bo Min raised a claw. But we are stronger than humans. Should we not use our strength? Yes, Tae Sung replied. But use it at the right time. A lion is stronger than a human, but a human with a trap and patience can still catch a lion. Be the human with the trap. Bo Min thought about this. It went against everything he had been taught. Kravasians believed in direct combat, in testing strength against strength. But he had watched half his squad die in direct combat. The human way kept people alive, I understand, he said. We save our strength for the perfect moment. Now you are learning. Tae Sung smiled. Rin Hai was analyzing captured Zathran equipment. She had discovered something interesting. Their armor is designed for frontal attacks, she explained to a group of fighters. It can stop almost any weapon from the front. But look here, she pointed to joints and seams. The sides and back are weaker. They expect their enemies to fight honorably from the front. So we do not fight honorably, said a Thelvar named So-Ra. We fight smart, Rin Hai corrected. Honor is a luxury. Survival is a necessity. Yongkang was running supply distribution. It was not glamorous work, but it was crucial. He made sure every cell had food, water, and ammunition. He also made sure to move supplies through unpredictable routes. Why do we keep changing the supply routes? Asked a Mektor unit. This path is 17% less efficient. Because the Zathran are looking for patterns, Yongkang explained. If we are predictable, we are dead. Being alive is more efficient than being dead. The Mektor processed this logic and agreed. The turning point came on the 4th day. The Zathran launched a major search operation, sending 200 soldiers to sweep the lower levels. It was exactly what Han Day had been waiting for. Let them come, he said. Team leads execute plan Ghost Step. Ghost Step was simple but brutal. As the Zathran soldiers entered the lower levels, the resistance did not fight them. They simply left, evacuated through dozens of small passages, leaving the area completely empty. But first they sabotaged everything. Cut power lines, sealed doors, released toxic gas at slow rates, made the entire section into a death trap that killed slowly. The Zathran soldiers found themselves in dark corridors, filled with poison air and locked doors. They could not advance. They could not retreat easily. They were trapped in a maze designed to kill them. 70 Zathran warriors died without ever seeing an enemy. War leader, Thex received the news and felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, fear of an enemy he could not understand. They fight without honor, he said to his officers. They fight to win. His intelligence officer replied quietly. Perhaps we should learn from them. Thex almost killed the officer for that suggestion, but he stopped himself. The officer was right. The Zathran had been apex predators for so long that they had forgotten adaptability. They knew only one way to fight. The humans knew 1,000 ways. In the bunker, the resistance was growing more confident. They had lost only 11 fighters in 4 days while killing or incapacitating over 200 Zathran. The math was clearly in their favor. We are winning, Threkvar said with wonder. We are actually winning. We are surviving, Han Day corrected. That is the first step to winning. What is the second step? Selvara asked. Han Day smiled. It was not a nice smile. We make them scared. He outlined the next operation. It was bold, perhaps crazy. They would attack the Zathran world ship itself. Not with weapons, with information. We send them a message, Han Day explained. We tell them that we studied them while they studied the galaxy. We tell them that we know their weaknesses. We tell them that they are not hunting us. We are hunting them. But is this true? Prime Unit 7 asked. Do we know their weaknesses? We know one weakness, Rin Hai said. They believe they are superior. They believe they cannot lose. If we break that belief, we break their spirit. The message was sent through every communication channel, broadcast on every frequency. It was simple and direct. Zathran, you prepared for the galaxy's strongest. You studied the powerful species, but you forgot to watch the weak ones. We are humanity. We survived being prey for millions of years. We know how to turn hunters into hunted. You are in our territory now, and you are learning what it means to be afraid. The message played on repeat in every language. The Zathran tried to jam it, but it kept appearing. On their screens, in their communications, everywhere. And with the message came action. Every Zathran position was attacked simultaneously. Not with armies, with small teams using ambush tactics, attacking and disappearing, making noise in one place while striking in another. The Zathran soldiers started looking over their shoulders, started jumping at shadows, started doubting their orders. War leader Thex watched his perfect invasion crumble. He had conquered hundreds of worlds, but he had never faced an enemy that turned his strength into weakness. Pull back to the world ship, he ordered. We retreat and regroup. His officers stared in shock. The Zathran never retreated, never. We cannot win this, Thex said bitterly. Not because we are weak, but because we do not understand this kind of war. In the bunker, sensors detected the Zathran withdrawal. Cheers erupted from the survivors. Different species, different backgrounds, all celebrating together. Krev found Hyundai and placed a heavy claw on the human shoulder. You taught us to be prey. And being prey saved us. No, Hyundai said. I taught you to think like prey. But you are not prey. You are survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes to win. Threkvar approached with Silvara and Prime Unit 7. We owe you our lives. Captain, the Admiral said formally. You owe yourselves. Hyundai replied. You learned. You adapted. You survived. That is all that matters. Will they return? Silvara asked. Hyundai looked at the tactical display showing the Zathran world ship preparing to leave orbit. Maybe. But if they do, they will remember that the galaxy is not just full of strong species. It is full of smart species. And smart beats strong every time. The Zathran world ship jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared into the darkness. The war was not over. But the battle was won, and the galaxy had learned a new way to fight. 2 months had passed since the Zathran retreat. Station Meridian 7 was being rebuilt. But more than just the walls had changed. Everything had changed. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time it was held in a temporary facility while repairs continued. The chamber was smaller, more practical. And when delegates arrived, something remarkable happened. Nobody rushed to claim the front row. The Crovasians arrived first. Admiral Threkvar, now promoted to Supreme Commander, looked at the empty front seats. Then he climbed to the third row and sat down. His warriors followed without question. The Telvar entered next. High Mind Silvara, her energy form restored and glowing bright again, floated past the prestigious front section. She settled in the fourth row, where she could see the entire room. The Mektor Collective marched in with their usual precision. Prime Unit 7, now upgraded and designated as Fleet Coordinator, calculated the optimal seating position. The calculations led to the back corner with a clear view of all entrances. When the humans arrived, Captain Hyundai paused. For the first time in 40 years, the front row seats were waiting for them. Empty, offered. He smiled and walked past them. He climbed to the back row, same as always, and sat down. The other delegates watched him go. Then one by one they followed. Not to crowd him, but to understand. The back row was not shameful anymore. It was wise. Within minutes, the entire council was seated in the middle and back sections. The front row remained empty. A reminder, a lesson, a memorial to those who had died because they thought strength meant sitting at the front. The session began with a single question from the council speaker, an ancient diplomat named Narration. How do we prevent this from happening again? Threkvar stood to speak. His voice was different now, less aggressive, more thoughtful. We were arrogant, he said. We believed our strength made us safe. We sat at the front to show power. We forgot that power without wisdom is just a target. The Zathran prepared for strong enemies, Silvara added, her thoughts gentle in everyone's minds. They studied our weapons, our tactics, our pride. They did not study the humans because humans seemed weak. That was the Zathran's mistake and our fortune. Prime Unit 7 displayed tactical data. Human survival strategies are statistically superior in asymmetric warfare scenarios. Their tactics prioritize mission success over individual glory. Unit survival over unit pride. Long-term victory over short-term dominance. All eyes turned to Hyundai. He had not asked to speak, but everyone wanted to hear from him. He stood slowly, uncomfortable with the attention. My people learned to survive by accepting what we were, he said simply. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the smartest in any single way. But we are adaptable. We learn. We endure. For millions of years, everything on our planet was trying to kill us. Big cats with teeth like knives. Bears that could crush our bones. Snakes with poison, disease, starvation. Ice ages and droughts. We survived all of it not by being strong enough to fight, but by being smart enough to avoid fighting when we could not win. He gestured to the empty front row. We sat in the back because we learned that being seen as weak is sometimes safer than being seen as strong. We watched, we waited. We prepared escape routes before we even sat down. Not because we are cowards, but because we are survivors. The chamber was silent. Every species was processing this in their own way. Yongkang stood next to Hyundai. The young diplomat had aged in the past months, had seen combat and death, but had also seen hope. The back row is not about fear, he said. It is about awareness. From the back you can see everyone. You can watch for threats. You have time to think before acting. You control your exits. The front row is where you perform, Rinhai added, standing as well. The back row is where you survive. And if you survive, you can perform another day. Tae-sung was the last human to stand. We propose that the council adopt what we call the back row doctrine. It is a philosophy, not just a seating arrangement. It means never assuming you are safe, never assuming you are strong enough, never forgetting that the galaxy is dangerous and that pride is a weakness. The debate lasted for hours. Some species resisted the idea. It went against their culture, their history, their identity. But slowly, as they discussed, they came to understand. The Kravasians had believed honor meant facing enemies directly. Now they learned that true honor was protecting your people, even if it meant hiding in the shadows. The Thelvar had believed enlightenment meant broadcasting their light. Now they learned that sometimes wisdom meant dimming your light so others would not target it. The Mektor had believed efficiency meant optimal actions. Now they learned that unpredictability was sometimes more efficient than perfection. The vote was unanimous. The back row doctrine was adopted as official Galactic Council policy, but Hyundai knew that changing philosophy was harder than changing votes. It would take time, maybe generations. Some species might never truly embrace it. That was acceptable. Humans had learned patience. After the session, the delegates gathered informally. Species that had fought separately for millions of years now shared stories and strategies. Kravasians taught humans about honor and courage. Humans taught Kravasians about patience and misdirection. Thelvar shared psychic techniques. Mektor shared tactical algorithms. Everyone was learning from everyone. Krev found Hyundai near the refreshment station. The Kravasian warrior looked different somehow, calmer, more thoughtful. I am returning to my homeworld tomorrow, Krev said. I will teach our young warriors what I learned here. Many will resist. They will say I am teaching cowardice. What will you tell them? Hyundai asked. I will tell them about the 93 warriors who charged the Zathran with honor and courage. And I will tell them about the 9 warriors who fought smart and survived. Then I will ask them which group can still defend their people. Hyundai smiled. You are a good teacher. I had a good teacher first, Krev replied. High Mind Selvara approached, her energy form pulsing with gratitude. The Thelvar Council wants to establish an exchange program. We would send students to Earth to learn human philosophy. Would your people accept? Yes, Hyundai said. But you should know human philosophy is not gentle. We have stories about terrible wars, horrible deaths, and species extinction. We teach children about danger. Good, Selvara replied. We need to learn about danger. We forgot it existed. Prime Unit 7 appeared next, its mechanical body gleaming with fresh repairs. Request permission to study human military history. Approximately 12,000 years of recorded warfare. Mektor Collective requires data for new tactical matrices. Granted, Hyundai said. But remember, the goal is not to become human. The goal is to learn from humans while staying true to yourself. Understood. Adapting without abandoning core identity. This is optimal. As the gathering continued, Hyundai found himself on a balcony overlooking the temporary station's main plaza. Below, different species worked together on repairs. Kravasians and humans lifting heavy materials, Thelvar and Mektor coordinating systems, everyone helping everyone. Yongkang joined him at the railing. We changed the galaxy, the young diplomat said with wonder. No, Hyundai replied. We reminded the galaxy of something it forgot. That strength is good, but wisdom is better. That power is useful, but adaptability is crucial. That survival is the first victory. Do you think the Zathran will return? Hyundai was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. Maybe, but if they do, the galaxy will be ready. Not because we are stronger, but because we are smarter. We learned to sit in the back row. 3 years later, Captain Hyundai was promoted to Admiral. The Galactic Council created a new position for him, Defense Coordinator. His job was not to command fleets or order attacks. His job was to teach. He traveled to hundreds of worlds spreading the back row doctrine. Some species embraced it immediately. Others took longer. A few rejected it entirely. But slowly, across the galaxy, the philosophy spread. Military academies started teaching human tactics alongside traditional strategies. Soldiers learned to value survival over glory. Commanders learned to value preparation over courage. Dr. Rinhei published a book called The Back Row Doctrine: Survival Strategies from Earth. It became required reading in every military school and leadership program. The core message was simple. Never forget that you can lose. Never assume you are safe. Always have an escape route. Always watch for threats. Always sit where you can see the doors. Commander Tae-sung established the first cross-species tactical academy. Species that had fought each other for centuries now trained together, learning from each other's strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. Yong-kang became the youngest council ambassador in history. He specialized in teaching diplomacy through the human lens. Understand your weaknesses, prepare for failure, and never assume good intentions from others. 10 years after the Zathran invasion, Admiral Han Dae attended another council session. By now the chamber had been completely redesigned. There were no front rows, no back rows. Instead, seats formed a circle with clear sight lines to all entrances and exits. It was called the human configuration. As he entered, delegates from 100 species nodded respectfully. The humans had gone from being seen as weak to being seen as wise.